And we can never not talk about this classic example of the epidemic of cholera in London in the 1800s. So the photo here shows the sign posted by the graveyard of the church during the outbreak of cholera in London. At that time, it was the major cause of death in England. And the problem was so severe that the churchyard put up a sign to refuse further burials of those people who have died of cholera. And the table here shows the cholera rates in London during the 1800s. There were four major episodes of cholera outbreak. Approximately 16,500 deaths in 1832 to 33, 14,000 deaths in 1848 and 49, 11,000 deaths in 1853 to 54, and 5,500 deaths in 1866. So to demonstrate the quality of water in London during the 1800s, this is the drawing by a journalist called John Wright, and he named this drawing Dolphin by following the name of this outlet that was pumping water supply to London. So if we can see here, maybe this is not so clear, but this is the actual water source, which is right in front of the sewage described here, the mouth of the Great Common Sewers, number 2. Also, number 3 is the company's steam engine. And as you can see, the pollution is being generated right by the side of the river. Also, it was very close to the drainage of the hospital. So just to show you, during that time, sanitation was not yet well developed in London during 1800s. And as I have previously mentioned, you may have already heard this in other classes. John Snow was a British anesthesiologist. He was famous for administering chloroform for a painless delivery to Queen Victoria. And he was also considered the legendary figure in history of public health and epidemiology for his work in identifying the source of cholera outbreak in London. John Snow examined the neighborhood where there was the ongoing outbreak of cholera to look for the underlying theme that linked these people together. So this is the map of the Broad Street, and he noticed that almost all cases of cholera occurred close to this pump in the middle of the street. And so he concluded that the consumption of water from this pump was the common factor among the patients. So his finding was very compelling, and he could persuade the local council to disable the pump, which later ended the outbreak in the first phase of cholera. But to remind you that germ theory has not yet been developed at that time, and it would take another 20 to 30 years to to confirm the theory with the development of microscope and the actual discovery of the microorganism itself. So Snow did not understand the mechanism by which the disease was transmitted. And his conclusion was purely based on his observations. And without the knowledge of the existence of microbes, he demonstrated through this epidemiological study that water was the mean, could serve as a vehicle for disease transmission. So his theory made him believe in germ theory as opposed to the miasma theory, competing theory at that time. In the second outbreak of cholera in London a few years later, he again confirmed his assumption that water was actually the mode of transmission of cholera. So initially, two water companies, the Southwark and Lambeth Company, used the same water source, and initially they had the same death rates among the consumers. But later, due to technical and non-health related reasons, Lambeth Company moved upstream of the water source to a less polluted area. So with his observation, this served as a natural experiment where he could see a much more death rate of choleras among consumer of water supply from this company, and that he could prove that water was in fact the main vehicle for cholera transmission.